Hello, good evening. Gary Edward Ghetto, psychologist, psychotherapist. Today is the 4th of June 2025. I'm here on my terrace in Lausanne, Switzerland. After the storm this afternoon, we had a quite heavy rain shower. It was a bit interesting. So today we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about defending your territory. It's a very important small subject to talk about, to reflect on, to organize your life. Just give you a few words about how my day has been. So this morning. I go to no, I went to the dentist yesterday. I sort of went to work as usual, saw some patients. This afternoon, I took someone to Montreux. If you know Montreux, it's on Lake Geneva, Lake Leman, and it's a very nice area there. It's miserable today because it's been raining and wet, but it's still a nice place to go. I took someone to do some stuff there. Hung around for a few hours, did some work on my computer, and a few coffees, had a cake that was a bit weird, whatever. Came back and had a steak dinner. I decided I wanted steak and eggs. I think I'm a bit short of protein. And here I am now talking about defending your territory. Now, what was interesting today is I had a patient, and she was explaining to me that I haven't seen her for a while. And in that time, she has reduced and reduced and reduced her circle of friends. And so, why? Is that a problem? She said, not at all. What I've decided is that I had too many friends that weren't really friends, that were problematic, were difficult. And so I reduced the amount of friends I've got. And it got me thinking about this concept of territory. Because what she did, she has a territory in which she has only a few friends that are allowed to come into her space. And she's excluded from her private space a lot of other people because she's decided that these are not people that are useful for her, that are positive for her. So she's not letting them in. And that got me thinking about the concept of territory. Now, I have mentioned territory before. It's not the first time, but I think it's really an important subject. It's something that I really want to reflect on with you. Now, Switzerland is a very particular country as far as territory is concerned because it's a federation, which means that it brings together states, cantons, different ones. First of all, we have three basic separate areas that are separated by language and culture. So we have the Swiss Germans, which are obviously German, Austrian as the basis of the people that live there. Then we have the Swiss Romand, which are more French, which is Lausanne and Geneva and the Valais. And then we have the Italian bit, Tessinois. So we already have three parts of Switzerland that are quite individual and quite independent. And I remember when I first came to Switzerland, it was a long time ago, and I had this sort of work experience in a place called invade at a children's home. And the director, when I went, I think even for the interview, it was because I didn't speak to him much after that. He sort of interviewed me, he organized the job for me, and then he buggered off, he disappeared. And he said, "Oh, he wanted to explain something to me," and he said, "Gary, look at the windows in that building facing us." And I said, "Yes." He said, "Look at the shutters. What do you notice about them?" I said, "Well, some are open and some are closed." He said, "Yeah, but what else?" I said, "I don't know." He says, "They're all different colors." I said, "Yes, and?" He says, "That is a description of Switzerland. Everyone wants to be a bit independent, wants to be a bit different." I didn't really understand because I'd only been in Switzerland for a few months and I hadn't gone around, hadn't talked to people, I hadn't seen life. But what I actually realized is that because it's, as I say, it's a federation, which means there are the three language groups, and then in those language groups there are different states, cantons, and then there are different communities, commune. And then there's different areas within those, and then obviously people's houses and the way people live. And which was really interesting to note is that they're all fiercely independent. For instance, I mean, I think it's changed recently, but I had a patient that said that she had moved several times in the last years, and her children had to change schools, and they were in different cantons, different states. And they went from Geneva to Lausanne to, I think, Fribourg. And each time they moved, they had huge difficulties because the academic expectations were totally different. All in the French part of Switzerland, so it's the same language, but they were different states, and the level is very different. Now, maybe in America, it's a bit like that because America and Switzerland are very similar. There's a lot of they're all both federations. They have similar structures. Even the independent health stuff, although in Switzerland it's much more reasonable. It's universal, even though we have different health companies. It's better organized and safer. But a lot of things are the same. But what I find to be very, very interesting, and we'll come back to this because it's important for you, and I'll explain why it's important for you later. But I'm giving sort of the background and the basis of my reflections and how it works here in Switzerland, because it does help see how the idea of territory, of personal space and personal responsibility, how it can function. I think in Switzerland it functions too much and it's too extreme, and it can be counterproductive. We'll get there maybe at the end. Let's see if we've got time. But all the different areas of Switzerland, from one street to a community to a state canton, they try and be independent and be different, and just to be different. Yeah, sometimes there's rules that are different that don't make a lot of sense unless you think, well, maybe the reason why that rule is different than somewhere else is because it's somewhere else, because they want it to be different. And this idea that this is my space, this is my responsibility, this is my area that I deal with, I came across that quite early on, and I was most shocked and surprised because I come from England. It's a different attitude, different way of functioning. So I went into the bank. I bank with the bank of Vaud, the BCV, Bon Contenant Vaudoise, and I went into a branch, a big branch, and I said, I'd like to ask you something about mortgages, mortgage rates, because we were thinking of buying a house. I wanted to ask about how it works and what was the rate at the moment and stuff like that. I went to just a desk and I asked to see somebody, a counsellor. And so I got there, I waited, I gave my number, I came and sat down, and I said, I want to talk to you about mortgage rates. He said, are you a member of this bank? I said, yes, I am. I thought, that's sorted, isn't it? They said, well, where do you bank? I said, I bank in a place called Shai. I didn't say a place called, but I'm saying to you, a place called Shai. He said, well, you must have a counsellor in Shai. I said, well, actually, there's the director of the bank who is technically my counsellor. He's responsible for me. He said, well, you should go and ask him. I said, yeah, I don't want to go and ask a bank manager something as simple as something to do with mortgage rates, which are the general for us. Oh, we can't deal with that. It's not our business. It's terrible. Actually, I went the other week to get something signed so that my accountant could have access to one. I opened some new bank accounts, and I wanted him to have access to it. So what I wanted is for them to print out the form. This is what I wanted, to print out the form that I could then take away, sign, send to him. He could then sign and then send back so he could have access. They wouldn't even print out the form. I had to ask for the person responsible for me to print out a form and send it. It's just, that's the way they think. This is my space. This is my territory. This is my responsibility. These are my clients. I've had patients that have had a problem, a technical problem, something important happened, and their social worker, for some reason, doesn't work that day, is off, is sick, is on holiday, or whatever. And unless they're on a long, a long sick leave or something like that, the stock answer is that person is not here today. As soon as they're back, they'll deal with your problem. And I said, but it's important that it gets dealt with quickly. Well, don't worry about it. It'll be only a few days. I said, but it's important now. So, well, we can't do anything. He's not our client. We're not supposed to go and look in someone else's dossier. Not supposed to. And yes, if the person's off sick for a long time, then someone will eventually take over. But no, this idea of space, of territory, it's very, very strong in the ethos of the Swiss. And that is something that most of us, in general, don't have that attitude. We're not so clear on what is or what are our territories, but either professionally or privately. Now, it's very possible that in your job, your territory, your job description is not precise enough. And you get into these gray areas of who is responsible for something and who is not responsible for something. And how are you supposed to deal with this? And something I'm very, very strong with is this concept of power and responsibility. Power and responsibility, decision making, obligations, all these have to go together. Because if you get someone that has power without responsibility, and unfortunately, a lot of bosses, they have that. They say, I make this decision, you make it work. It's like, that's the deal. So I have the power and I give you the responsibility. And that often leads to some awful abuses because they say, oh, we've decided to reduce your department by so many people. And you say, well, what about the workload? He says, well, you just find ways to get people to work a bit more or be more efficient and solve your problem. No, that's not the way it's supposed to work. On the other hand, you have the other person that's got the responsibility, quotes, to make it work, but they don't have the power to make decisions, so they can make it work. And that is where things get very messed up. Now, in work, it's more obvious. It's more obvious when somebody has not their own space, their own territory, their own area of responsibility, that they can say, this is my responsibility, I have this budget, I can say, I feel it's appropriate, I can spend it this way, or I have this manpower or these resources, and I can deal with it this way, and I'll make it work, because I have the means, I have the tools, I have what I need to do that. That's great. What happens when somebody comes into your space and starts telling you what to do, or doesn't want to do it the way you want it done? Then you've lost that territorial cohesiveness. Once you have other people that start to be able to mix in to your decisions, and I'm not saying that we live in a vacuum and we have to interact with other people in other departments. That's normal. That's how anything of any size works. But there needs to be a space in which we are able to function without being told what to do if we have the responsibility. If we have no responsibility, it says, go here, do this, go here, do that, do the other, and you do what that other person tells you to do, and you do it reasonably well. If the project fails for whatever reason, and you've done as you have been told, then it's not your territory, it's not your responsibility. And as I say, to differentiate power and responsibility, decision making, it's very, very important, because maybe it's not your territory. And if it's not your territory, then don't worry about it. You either don't get involved, or if you do something, you do it directly under orders. And whoever's giving you those orders, it's their territory, it's their space, their responsibility. If it works, or if it fails, it's down to them. So let's just think about how that would happen in not in work, but in private. in normal relationships, in family. So I had a woman came to me, very upset. She says, my marriage is breaking down. I don't know what to do. My husband, I've never seen him like this. He's aggressive, he's violent, he's unpleasant. And I said, well, what has happened? Why is it changed? He says, well, over the years with the kids getting more and more homework, he started to become more and more unpleasant and aggressive with the children and stuff like that. And I don't cope with it. So I said, well, look, let's call him in and let's understand a bit what the problem is from both points of view. So I got him to come in. I saw them both as a couple. And I said, sir, well, what's going on? He says, she's trying to destroy my kids. My kids. Already doesn't bode very well, does it? I said, well, how is she trying to destroy your kids? I gave it straight back to him. And he said, well, the Swiss education system is quite tough. It's quite demanding. My kids are intelligent. If they work hard, they're going to succeed. They're going to do well. The guy's an engineer, good education in the EPFL, which is the technical, not technical college, because it's much, much higher than that. It's the Technical University of Lausanne. And he said, I want my kids to succeed, and she is sabotaging me. I said, well, I said, well, are you sabotaging? She says, not at all. It's like he's just being so unpleasant with our kids. He's forcing them, and he's aggressive with them, and he keeps them up late. He makes them repeat things a lot until they're sort of perfect. He wants only perfection. And I said, was that true? He said, yes, of course I only want perfection. My kids are great. They're intelligent. They can work hard. They can learn. Of course, I want them to be as best as they can. And that's perfect. Why not? And she said, well, it's too hard. And they had this in front of me. They started to row about, he was being aggressive, and he was saying that she wants him to fail. And it's like, I said, wait. I said, how does this work in your home? What's the system? So she said, well, the kids come home. They do a bit of homework with me. Then we'll have dinner. Husband's home. He has dinner with us. And then after dinner, then he sort of takes over the kids, and he shouts at them, and he makes them upset, and I can't cope with it. I find it child abuse. He said, that was stupid child abuse. Really nice conflict between the couple. And I said, well, are there any particular subjects that you differentiate between the two of you? He says, well, of course. He says, I'm the scientific one. So maths, physics, chemistry, biology. Did we say physics? I think so, yeah. Sciences. And says, and she does the other things. Soft subjects. Soft subjects, French, which is very, very important in school system. French and languages, basically, and anything that's a bit artistic. So I said, well, why don't you just separate the tasks and just say, look, you go somewhere and you deal with those subjects, your kids, at one moment, and she can deal with the soft subjects, and that's your territory. And she said, well, yeah, but he's aggressive with them and he's not nice with them. I said, that is his way of being a good parent. That is his vision of a good parent. The children, although they might suffer a bit in the moment, there's no question about that, but they get good grades and they're proud of themselves and they're advancing with their lives. You have your subjects that you deal with them in your way. So why don't you just separate the territory? I use that word a lot, I know. And say, well, let him deal with them his way. Don't get involved at all. And you deal with your subjects the way you feel they are appropriate. And that way, you're not going to be there, you're not going to be noticing or seeing what he's doing that's upsetting you. And you can deal with your subjects, with your kids the way you want, and he deals with his subjects the way he wants. And you don't mix the two. And you just get out of his hair and trust that what he's doing is not wrong. He is assuming those subjects. That's his territory. That's what he's good at. He can help his kids, because I know from my kids, after a certain level, things get very complicated. And if you've not followed what they're doing, or you're not super capable doing things, for instance, my father-in-law, who's a micro engineer, super brilliant, intelligent guy. He helped my son with his maths and his physics well beyond what I could do. And I did reinforce maths, further maths at the A level. So I'm supposed to be good, but I just couldn't keep up. I couldn't follow it. Fortunately, he had someone else that they could go to that could help him do that and sort that out. And so, to separate the territory between different people and say, this is my area of responsibility, this is what I can do, this is what I'm willing to do, this is what I want to do. Leave me alone. Get out my hair. Get out my space. And let me do my job my way, that's getting positive results, that's being successful, even though you don't like my techniques, even you don't like the way that I function in a way that is appropriate for me and gets positive results and is not doing any real damage. I mean, yes, the kids say, I'm tired, I want to go to bed. Yes, the kids say, it's enough, we don't need to go further, we don't need to know this and know that. And yes, the father's saying, I want you to go and be the best. I'm going to insist that you learn this, even though it's not exactly what you've been told you need to learn. I think it's important for you to know that, because you understand things better. And if there's a question that the others haven't prepared for, maybe you can answer that question, because I insist that you learn this. It's in your book. It might be what the teacher said, but it's in the book. You need to learn it. And yes, she's a mother, and she has all the softness that you would expect. Yes, it's maybe a bit sexist and sort of like that, but it just happens to be true in this particular case. I mean, not cases where the mother is much tougher and quite strident and quite demanding, and the father's softer. I know patients also, couples like that, but in this case, it's really sort of classic. She didn't want her children to suffer, and she said when I do the homework with them, when I do the French with them, when I do English with them, German with them, she's all languages with them. She's really good at these things. Says, it's fun, it's light, it's not stressful for them. They come back from you, they're stressed. At least with me, it's easy. And the husband turns and says, well, yeah, you do it your way. I support you 100%. As long as they get good results, and the results were reasonable, it wasn't totally satisfied, but as long as they get good results, do it your way. I'm not going to mix in with your area, which is languages and arts and things like that, and you leave me alone to deal with our kids. Eventually became our kids. It's already a big step forward after, like you were, destroying my kids. At least they said our kids. Sort of moved a bit, sort of more together. He says, our kids will do fine. I'll see to that, and you see to the other. And, we'll go in different spaces. Nice house and space, different areas. And worked quite well. And after a while, it sorted itself out. She accepted the fact that she had no right to interfere with him, how he did the homework with their kids. It was his domain, his area, and everything became calm. She wasn't happy with it, but she accepted that was the way that things are. Question of territory. And as I said, that in work situations, The question of territory is very, very important because the territory works with, as I say, responsibility and power, decision making. I had a patient that came to me and said, Mr. Gedda, I don't know what to do with my work. Is that my boss keeps telling me to do things in a certain way, or he's reducing the workforce and that. And I keep going to him and says, I don't know how to make this work. And he says, what are you being paid for if not to find solutions? So I don't know what else to say. So I go back and I still don't know what to do. I say, well, next time you're in this situation, try it this way. You go to him and say, I don't know how to do this. And he says, you are being paid to find solutions. You see, what's what always says, yeah. I say, now you say, but I don't know how to find this solution. You are being paid to find solutions if I can't find them. That's your job. Your job is higher than mine, and it means you need to find solutions for problems that I can't find. It becomes his territory. The territory of all of that is by definition the territory of the boss. And by giving him back the responsibility because it's his territory, then he cannot just say, solve your problem, because it's not my territory, because my territory is within his territory. So even that way, you push the responsibility backwards, if you like, or up the chain, and you're relieved of it. So there are the two particular situations that are so important is that if you are doing a project and you have the responsibility to make that project work, and you feel you have the means to make that project work, then you defend your space. You don't allow other people to get involved. You don't allow other people to push you. I mean, yes, we're in interaction with everybody. That's life. But you, when it's your space, you say, this is my space. I do it my way, because if it falls or if it works, it's down to me. It's my name on it, and I make it work. And if it's not your territory, it doesn't matter. I have a story. I think I'm going to tell you this story because it might even go a bit after the half hour, but it's a story that I just remembered from a long, long time ago. At one point, amongst the 3,427 jobs I've had in my life, I worked at the Blackpool Pleasure Beach, which is an amusement park in Blackpool, which is a tourist beachside town in the northwest of England, near Manchester. And they have a big pleasure park. At one point, it's one of the biggest in the northwest, if not in England, for a while. And I was a summer job, and I was working on a game. And the game was that you had these little balls, and you threw them in holes, and the further the holes were, they had this horse race thing, and the horses would move as you got them in the right hole. They would move further. And our job was to give change. So if they had notes, which would give them change that would go in the machine, and when they won, to give them the prizes. Now, the rule was that, for whatever reason, is that if we ran out of change, we were not allowed to go into there was an island, a kiosk of change. We're not supposed to allowed to go there and ourselves directly ask to change bills for that. For some reason, maybe they were scared somehow they would do something illegal or steal money. I had no idea. So we came one moment in the period I was there, we ran out of change. And the manager wasn't there. So me being who I am, I said, well, we should go to the island and get some change. And the guy said, oh, no, we can't. There's people who've been there for years. We can't do this, and we'll get sacked or we're in trouble. And what did I do? I took over the responsibility. It became my territory. I said, I will deal with this. I will go and get change. If there's any fallout, if there's any problem, I will assume it. Anyway, I was only there for a few months. I got sacked at the end of the world anyway. So I climbed over the game. I went to there, and I don't know, £20, £30. It was England, remember? And I went and got some silver, got some change, and I get back, and it was fine. What happened there? What happened is I created that territory. I created a space of responsibility and the power I took on myself to do that. And whether it's right or wrong, whether it's good or bad, whether you should or you shouldn't, that is the whole principle. Either it's within your territory, you take the responsibility, you take the power. If something bad happens, it's down to you, or it's not yours. And then it's outside of your domain, and therefore you don't have the responsibility, you don't have the power. And of course, there's all sorts of shared responsibility and things like that's very much more complicated. But just remember that what you are doing in your life, and this 70-day challenge is exactly that. You make a decision, something you want to do, you want to do it in a certain way, hopefully have the means to do it, and you take responsibility for yourself to do what is necessary, what is important. So, a little talk on territory for tonight. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Hope you found it interesting. Today is Wednesday, so I'm here again tomorrow night, Thursday night at 8:30. Saturday, I'm going to talk about how to deal with aggressive people. It's very, very important. Saturday at 4:30 CEST. So if you're available, please tune in at least for that, because I think it's going to be something worth doing. There's a lot of my own personal stories of how I've dealt with things in the past, but I think I'll give you some idea how to deal with complicated situations. Okay, so give me a thumbs up, like, subscribe, share with everybody else, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow, specifically, definitely on Saturday, because it's really important. And Sunday's meditation hypnosis, but I don't know what I'll do then. You'll see.